Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX, and again on Saturday morning at 9 on KATX and KWBY as Angela Robinson joins Terry Slavens to share important financial information to help you live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, estate and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
And welcome into Life Planning 101 right here on KATX KWBY as we're joined now by Angela Kennedy Robinson. Very important topic on tap today, Angela.
Yes.
Worried about college savings.
Worried about college savings. Question mark, right?
Question mark. Big question mark.
Well, don't worry because you're not the only one. If the answer was yes. You know, I think whether you're actually planning for college that it's going to be in the next year, 2, 3, 4, or if it's 10 to 15 years away. And really, if it's 10 to 15 years away, you're probably a little more worried because we don't know what education is going to look like in 10 to 15 years. So, how do you address all of this? What do you actually do? And that's what we're really going to address in the show today. And I'll tell you the reason that I thought this was great. A couple weeks ago, we were working, and you remember we kind of quarterback our planning. So we actually had this couple on the phone with us, a very successful couple in their 40s, and they have a young child that's about 8 years old, and their accountant was on the phone with us. We had a planning CPA on the phone with us, and then myself. And once we got through with everything, we figured out a way to be able to take some expenses that they have today that are non-deductible on their tax return. They're able to write these expenses off, and where they're at, they're paying over 50% in taxes between their state and their federal income tax, okay?
Wow.
Yeah, so every dollar saved them 50 cents. That's a great return on their money, right? 50% return on your money. So, yeah, I felt really good after that day.
So did they.
So did they, right? Yeah, so every dollar that they were able to do, we were able to show them how to deduct that money, and then that money would basically be tax-free money to pay for their children's college.
Everyone would like to have that plan.
Isn't that great?
That is
yeah,
fantastic.
so that's really what spawned this information for the show today. And we actually wrote an article on this a long time ago. Do want to remind everybody, go on, see our articles, KATXradio.com, KWBYradio.com, and you can go to Kennedy-financial.com and be able to get this article, subscribe to our weekly newsletter, because it does have some really, really good information, and I don't think you want to miss it. And first thing I want to talk about on the show today is talking about inflation, though. And this is really the heartbreaker. So I saw this great little, and I encourage you to get on, you can Google it, College Board. And they actually use like rolling 5-year inflation rates is what they do. And this last 5 years, even though the government has basically said we've had no inflation, so college inflation rates have gone up about 13%.
No inflation, but cost of groceries has gone up
yeah.
a lot also.
That's right.
College education, 13%.
13% over the last 5 years. Now, that doesn't sound bad because it's about 3% a year. But I wanted to back it up a little bit because we're kind of in an anomaly time. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
We've got record low interest rates. Our economy has been very sluggish since we had this huge banking bubble, housing bubble, everything back in 2008, 2009. And so if things got better again, what could that look like? Well, since the year 2000, the cost of college has increased 75%.
Since the year 2000?
Yes.
75%. And this is public and private universities?
Public
universities. So private's probably been higher.
Private was a slightly higher. You can go to collegeboard.com and check out these facts and figures. I'm telling you, this will blow your mind. That is 5% a year. So I want you to think from a perspective, okay, my baby's just born. I'm going to open a 529 plan because at least in there it grows tax deferred, which means I don't have to pay taxes on anything going inside of there. And then as long as they use it for college, then I can take it out and not pay taxes on it. Great
Okay.
plan.
Tell our listeners, what is the 529 plan?
529 plan is a savings plan specifically designated for universities, okay, or colleges. So as long as you use it for educational expenses at a qualified college or university, then you take that money out and it's tax-free money to you, which is great. That's a great thing. But I want you to think about this again. If you're having to beat 5% a year and trying to grow your money on top of that, that's rough waters. Especially if you're in a buy and hold type strategy. And let's just back up. Let's back to that year 2000. Let's think about let me paint a picture. Let's imagine that your child, you started saving for him in the year 2000. And then we fast forwarded to the year 2010, decade of no returns. So the money didn't grow anything. And the cost of college was up, what? Over 10 years?
50%.
50%.
You're not making any headway in paying for your college
That's
down
right.
the road.
That's right. So, is that scary? Absolutely, right? Does it cause concern? Again, don't worry. You're not the only one concerned. I think there's a lot of people concerned out there. What can you actually do to make that work? And today, that's why I want to talk about some alternative planning strategies that might just ease your mind. Now, one of these has to do with the 529, and we'll start there because I do think it's important to note that, most people don't put money in a 529 in year one and hold it for 10 years. They put money in weekly, monthly, periodically, right? And it's kind of like your 401k. Well, there's this little thing called dollar cost averaging that's extremely important about the market. And that's what allows you to not have stagnant investments. And here's how it works. Now, you're going to have to play along with me, Terry. Do you like peas?
Yes.
Okay, great. So let's just imagine that it's Sunday and you go to the grocery store and peas are $1 a can. So you buy peas for $1 a can. Next day you go back on Monday and they're on sale, 2 for $1. You gonna buy them?
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. So you spend another $1. You spent $2 and you have 3 cans of peas. On Tuesday, you go back and they're 3 for $1.
I'm buying some more.
You're buying some more. So you spent $3 and you have another 3 cans, which is 6 cans. Now let's pretend that on Wednesday they went back up to $1 a can and you had the opportunity to sell your 6 cans for $1 a piece. You have $6, right?
Exactly.
And how many did you spend?
3.
3. So did you make a profit?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That's what the market allows you to do by being a periodic investor in it. Okay. Because it's always moving up and down. In fact, the more volatility, the better.
Exactly.
Isn't that crazy to think about that?
And 2 weeks ago, Aaron was in, and he talked about that when the market goes down, that's the time to buy.
Yes, when there's blood in the streets, you buy. When people are panicking, you buy. That's absolutely right. So, that's, of course, one of the simplest solutions I think people overlook because they get fearful, so they do nothing. Well, nothing is really not a answer to be able to do.
They got to do something.
They've got to do something.
And we'll talk about that when we come back.
That's
right
right.
after this break. And welcome back into Life Planning 101 right here on KTX KWBY. Terry Slavens along with Angela Kennedy Robinson. Worried about college savings. What can we do, Angela?
Well, we were talking about how your 529 could be a 229 really quickly, right? Isn't that what it was? So, but it is a scary thing. And, at the beginning of the show, we mentioned about a couple that we helped, and I don't want you to miss that information. So make sure you stay tuned for this whole show because we're going to go through some other things. Another option that you can use besides the 529 is the Texas Tuition Promise Fund. If you're a Texan, of course, we have a lot of listeners that aren't, but you have something similar in your state. They may move to Texas, right? Yeah. And so what this is you actually prepay your college tuition on an average cost in today's dollars. So if you took the average cost of public universities in today's dollars, that's what you would pay. And you go ahead and prepay and you get credits. And that applies so when your child turns 18 years old and they want to start using them, then you can use them. Sounds really great if you don't know what that inflation rate's going to be. And I do want to make note, it is backed by the schools themselves, not by the state of Texas. You need to know that. And I think the biggest risk to this is that what if your child decides to do one of two things? Go outside the state or go to a private school? And this is something you've really got to consider, especially if you're a younger parent with younger kids. I myself am in this boat and trying to think about what's the best way to do this because I have no clue what my child's going to do. I have no clue how smart they're going to be. I have no clue if they're even going to go to school, right? Or what school is going to be like at that time. We're moving more and more towards these technical-based schools. Are things going to go that way? Are they going to be more directed? How's all this going to work? So if you had that happen, your education credits that you bought today are not going to go as far. And they're not going to go by as far by a lot. And I would strongly encourage you to do some research. You can go on to their website. Just type in Google Texas Tuition Promise Fund. You can go on their website and actually look at that and talk about it with your advisor. I think it's really important. I'm always a big pro of don't put all your eggs in one basket. And I think when you're doing college planning, this is really one of those areas that you shouldn't put all your eggs in one basket, because it's really important to consider that. Another thought is, if you're going to be 59 and a half by the time that your child reaches college age, another great place for you to put money is a Roth IRA as opposed to a 529. And here's why. It works a lot like a 529, that you put it in there and it grows tax deferred. And as long as you take it out in retirement, which they classified at 59 and a half, then it comes out tax free. The difference between the 529 and the Roth is that in a 529, you have to use it for education expenses to get that tax-free treatment and no penalties. A Roth IRA, you don't have to use it for education expenses. So it's a great flexible way to invest your money.
And a fallback plan.
Yes, and a fallback plan.
Use it for something else.
Use it for something else, or use it for yourself.
Quick question. Say most people are not going to be 59 and a half yet when their kids reach college age, or a lot of them aren't.
Right.
Could a grandparent do the same thing?
A grandparent could do the same thing as long as they have the ability to contribute to that Roth IRA or convert dollars from the IRA to a Roth IRA. So it's a great question, because you can do it, and that's where kind of planning comes involved. And you got to think about all the sides and the consequences of it. But it is a great idea. Another thought is if you've got cash stashed somewhere else at that point till you reach 59 and a half, use that. And then the 59, when you turn 59 and a half, you can kind of replenish yourself, right?
Right.
So there's multiple ways to do it. So I wouldn't rule it out. In fact, I'm not going to be 59 and a half when my kid is in college. However, that is where I'm kind of tagging money for his savings. I will have other money that we can use, but I'm going to be tagging money that it's going to wash it out. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it's definitely a thought. And I think, we always talk about diversification. We are the king of diversification in more ways than one. Investments, of course, you hear about diversification a lot. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Planning, diversification, flexibility. The more flexibility you have, the better off you are. I mean, if you want to set something in stone, a lot of times stone doesn't work after 18 years. We've moved on. It's man-made, manufactured stone. So, you got to think about those things and what could be the differences there. So prepaid plans, Texas Tuition, I think that's great. They're not intended for last-minute changes. You have to purchase them 3 years prior to using them. So that's another thing you have to consider. The 529s, we talked about that. And then the Roth IRAs. Now, let's talk a little bit more creative. Let's suppose that you have a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old, and your 529 plan has done squatcha because of what market conditions have done. Or let's say you hit a 2008 mark in the market, and you don't want to pull money out of the bottom of the market. I wouldn't want to pull money out of the bottom of the market. I mean, you're pulling out for pennies on the dollar. What can you do? Well, if you're in a bad market like that, usually there's a huge rebound afterwards, right?
All the time.
Every time in history there's been one. Not saying there's going to be in the future, but every time in history
we
there's
can't
been
predict
one.
the future.
Yep. Past performance cannot be indicative of future results,
exactly.
Right? Okay. But, if you're planning on that big rebound, what about taking out a loan? That interest may be really cheap in comparison to market returns. Think about that.
Yeah. Because money's cheap right now.
Money's cheap. Okay, don't miss it. When we come back, we are going to give you that piece of advice we started with the first of the show about the couple that was actually able to write it off and then do it. And I've got one other great piece that you don't want to miss about college savings.
We'll be back right after this. It's the final segment of Life Planning 101 on this beautiful Monday. Angela Kennedy Robinson with us. And Angela, something everyone worries about, paying for their kids' college education.
Back to the beginning of the show. I promised you some really good food for thought in this last segment, and you don't want to miss this. First of all, this is kind of a creative solution that I actually learned about, really the actual details at a conference I just went to. And a good question arose. It was, would you like the opportunity to be rich or the guarantee that you'll never be poor? I think a big thing in our environment today, because of where our economy is and what's going on, is we just don't know. We just don't know what this economy is going to look like in 10 years or 18 years from now. We got a huge election coming up in November. Could mean a lot, right? And so we just got to take everything by a grain of salt. But let me give you an idea. Suppose you took out a whole life policy. Now, this was done through a company with Mass Mutual, who since 1868 hasn't ever failed to pay a dividend. So this is an example of this. You're a 35-year-old male, and you do a 10-pay policy, saving $14,000 a year for 10 years. Okay, this is part of your overall retirement savings. Your death benefit on the policy is about $439,000. You have a guaranteed cash value of $169,000 in year 18. Meaning that's the year for college savings. Ding, 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 ding. Okay, so at that time, the policy can start distributing a loan to you at $50,000 a year. By the way, tax-free, $50,000 a year to pay the college tuition. And then by the time you're 70, the cash value has been built back up to $149,000 and still has the death benefit of $417,000.
And this is guaranteed.
That's on the guaranteed side.
Guaranteed interest
That's
rates.
on the guaranteed side.
Guaranteed dividends.
According to Mass Mutual, okay?
Right.
Guaranteed to Mass Mutual, right? We got to put that disclosure. Now, based on your situation and your health, all this can be kind of changed. But I think that's a great creative planning tool you need to know about. You need to be thinking about. Again, I don't think there is a one-size-fits-all, because it doesn't matter if Janet Yellen wakes up and sees her shadow or not. We're going to have these guarantees inside that whole life policy. So that's pretty cool. Another thing, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, how did we help that couple get from, where they're at, 50% tax rate, be able to write off normal expenses that they have, today that they're not being able to write off, get that 50% tax break, which is a great return on their money, and then use that money later for college savings. Here's what they did. They started paying their kid for work. Let's suppose you have a little farm, a little ranch, a little business, whatever. Have you thought about paying your kid to do some sweeping, do some organizing for you? Maybe be on your marketing, be part of your business card and have your picture up on the screen. Hire your kid. You can actually hire your kid at $6,300 a year. And that kid doesn't even have to file their taxes and pay any taxes on that. There's no Social Security tax. There's no Medicare tax up to the age of 18. So they don't pay taxes. You get to deduct the full expense. You put that money back in a Unified Transfer to Minors Act account, a Guardian account, whatever account you want to use, and then it's there for them.
And growing, it will grow.
Yes. Yeah. If you put it there to grow, it can grow. It has the potential to do that. And you got to be careful, okay, because they can only have so much interest and gains before it's taxed at the parents' rate. But that's where planning comes in. In this couple's situation, we found a way for them not to have to pay taxes and accomplish that same thing.
And that's what this show's all about.
That's
planning.
That's what the show is
Life
all
Planning
about.
101.
Life Planning 101. You can't just say, oh, I think that's best for me, and just pick that out. It's not like that. You have to look at your whole situation and make sure everything's blending, because in this couple's case, every $6,000 a year really only costs them $3,000, because otherwise they'd be paying taxes on the full $6,000. Think about that. That's a pretty cheap way to plan.
Very cheap.
Yeah, so, I think it's really important that we look at all that. A good friend of ours, he has a saying. He says, waiting for a burned out light bulb to come back on is not a strategy. Oh, that's Charlie Mahar to Tillwood Investments. He does a great job for us, and I tell you what, he always has these little quirky things, but they make a lot of sense. So we need to listen to that. But let's get to our trivia. We're giving away a free large pizza today from Domino's, and I want to know, what is the average inflation rate of college tuition since the year 2000? First emailer, lifeplanning@kennedy-financial.com. Email us for your free large pizza, first email we get, and make sure to like us on Facebook at Kennedy Financial. God bless. We really appreciate everyone every week listening to the show. And if you have any questions or concerns about the show, make sure you address them, and we'll try to get them back on the show next week.
Looking forward to some more great shows. Next week, we have your dad coming in.
That is right. We do
Looking
have
forward
some
to that.
special guests. I will not be with you, so I don't know if they can handle it, but we'll see. I'm sure they'll do an all right job. My dad, my brother, talking about the business itself, how how actually things work on the life planning infrastructure, how we put that together. And then Aaron's going to be giving a great market update, which I don't think anybody's going to want to miss as we go into this election cycle.
Election cycle just around the corner. That's it for Life Planning 101. We'll see you next week.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on KATX and KWBY for more Life Planning 101.
Advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Calton & Associates Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Kennedy Financial Services Incorporated is an independent of Calton & Associates Incorporated and Smart Money Group, LLC.